You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
Beautiful.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Chris. So lead us
Welcome
in. Actually, let me tell you a little bit about the Night Cafe. The little video you saw, this is something that just came out. It's a VR tribute to Vincent Van Gogh. He's going to be releasing an upcoming VR expo or seminar or something like that.
That looks
but I
beautiful.
think it's pretty cool. Can't wait to get my hands on it. I want to be in a Van Gogh painting.
Wow, and the music, they did a really good job matching the music with the art. So check out the, it's called the Night Cafe. It's part of VR Jam, which is the upcoming Oculus show, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and hopefully, sounds like, fingers crossed, Palmer has some sort of announcement. He made an announcement yesterday. Consumer One is on the way. Consumer One is going to ship sometime Q1 of 2016, is what I heard yesterday. So there will probably be more details at the VR Jam, and check out the Night Cafe with Vincent Van Gogh. That was a pretty cool little intro. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome. So what's up, Chris?
Well, you know, it's another Friday, beautiful Friday, and today is May 8th, 2015, and we're going to just jump right in with some news items, stuff that happened over the week, experiences in this 3D realm that we live in. So why don't you tell us about your first item?
Sounds good. Well, in order to kind of just continue with the VR thing, there's a company called Toy, who's also known for their Octane render. Are you familiar with that, Chris?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, big time.
Yeah, it's almost, in fact, just a real-time photon-based renderer. It has some extreme ability to render hyper-realistic type images. Some time ago, I had made a couple of blog posts on it. But what they're in the news for now is creating, and I have a video I'll show a little bit, this new device, what they call a light field capture system. So if you notice, there are two cameras here in this image, but it's not like your standard VR 360 panoramic, which, as you know, is what I've been doing. But this captures kind of like different perspectives of the same shot. I don't know if you've ever seen a hologram. More than likely you have, Chris. And if you notice, if you move the image, you can see different angles or aspects of it. Well, they are doing the same thing. They are capturing a large number of images, and then through their engine, they're able to literally, let's say, put it on a tablet, and you can move the tablet around, and it's like a real hologram because you can move around and you can look at it. So, you know, it was kind of hard to get my little head around it, but I finally figured it out. That's what they were trying to attempt. But what does this do? Let me run the little video here in the background. And there you go. So here they're showing the actual camera operation. Actually, right now they're just going around the camera. It's not actually functioning. Okay.
Whoa, that thing's cool.
What it's doing right now is taking different, what do you want to call it, images.
Oh, wow. Wow, what a creative way of doing that.
Well, but what's important, it's I don't know how many images, I don't think the article says, but let's say maybe thousands of them. And then it uses its new engine to pull the proper angle image, and as this guy is showing, the
What?
ability to move in real time in that office. So it's not
How,
just
so tell me this. Because it's got two cameras, but they must be offset for your eyes, right?
No, actually what it's doing is using those to create multiple planes. And as you move your head, it is adjusting those planes to match the movement. So if you're looking, he can move in and out, turn left or right. Unlike what you see in a standard VR, you don't have, it's just a plane. Here you actually have multiple planes, and you adjust those planes based upon your movement. So it literally looks like 3D objects. And you can look underneath an object with a 360 panoramic. You can't look underneath the object. It's just there. It's a single plane. It's like looking at a wall. If somebody had put a 3D object on a wall, let's say a camera like what I'm looking at right now, you couldn't look underneath it. With this technique, you could literally take your goggles, move your head down, and be able to look underneath the object. That is the huge difference. So this is what they've captured and able to do in real time. So that's, I think a lot of people aren't going to get their heads around this, why this is so important. Imagine a game that is hyper-realistic, that looks like you're in an environment, not just a projection on a wall. These objects you can look around. You can look on top of them. You can look on the sides of them. It's like they're there. In fact, one buddy, somebody who did an interview with him at one of the shows said that you could actually have a moving object and do the same thing. So
are they using light-filled cameras for this?
It appears to be the case. Well, these look like standard backing. I think that's just their term for it. But they are capturing the light information for each of these scenes, and they're able to manipulate. And from what I read, you can also manipulate the lighting process as well, shadowing and so forth. So they are doing a lot of interesting things, but more importantly, it is in real time.
Unbelievable.
That's the big difference here.
Wow, what a cool thing. You can check that out over at otoy.com. So you said, like you said, the people that brought us Octane Render, what an amazing project.
Yep. Okay.
Awesome.
What do you got for us, Chris?
Well, this is an interesting story that I read yesterday. Louisville Cloud DDM, in partnership with UPS, is opening a factory in their near their the UPS Louisville headquarters. 100 printers, 3 employees. This is on CNN Money, and here's some pictures of the Cloud DDM printers. They apparently are opening up a factory. UPS is partnering with Cloud DDM, and they are unveiling a 3D printing factory that's embedded in the heart of a UPS worldwide hub. And so they'll have 100 high-tech 3D printers running 24 hours, 7 days a week. And it only needs 3 employees, each working in 8-hour shifts, so one at a time. One employee will handle all the packaging, shipping, they're claiming, for 100 printers. I don't know how they expect to do that, because I'm juggling, I juggle 5 printers total, but usually about 3 printers. And, I mean, I'm modeling while I'm printing, but, and I'm working on other things, but, it's still 100 printers sounds like quite a goal to get to manage on your own for one person. So they're going to be a full-blown press print online to order directly to like a next day air solution. So they'll be right at a hub. So it sounds pretty promising, and just pretty cool. UPS partnering with Cloud DDM.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Well, and I have your same reservations. I've tried to manage multiple printers. Of course, I don't have, what would you call them, commercial grade. And so that may account for some of it. But yeah, one person, 100 machines, it's kind of unlikely. I think they're kind of stretching it there. As I did an interview some time ago with Kat from Shapeways, they have a team that run their Shapewave printers, which I would think is kind of similar to this. And, it's not a one man, and they've got, a large staff taking care of it. So don't know. Good luck to them.
Yeah, definitely. So
Okay, well,
for people that don't need quite as much service, or are not as oriented with customer service, this might be a good route for you to get your item 3D printed. It's kind of like going to be probably a pretty large competitor of both Shapeways and Red Eye On Demand. So,
well, that'll be the hope, and if they keep their costs down, and more importantly, turnaround time shorter, that might cut into some of that. All right, I'm going to move on to my next item.
Awesome.
Last week, obviously, I wasn't in my studio, so I forgot to mention one of the things. And, even though Microsoft was in the news, I had a two-part for Microsoft. Obviously, the HoloLens, which we talked about.
We did.
But the other part was they've created, and actually is a consortium, they're working on a new 3D file standard.
Yeah.
And, they're going to be taking a look at, if they haven't already created it, I haven't found it yet, they're going to be evaluating what's out there right now and updating it, essentially. They're going to create something probably that is more streamlined, more efficient. And with that being said, one of the other things that I read is that it's a consortium. It's not just Microsoft. It is Autodesk, what is it, Shapeways, Sketchfab, 3D Systems. The big boys are involved with this too. I think even maybe Stratasys. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, it was Dassault, Autodesk, a lot of the big names, and it was open. They said it's going to be an open consortium, so pretty much that everybody that wants to get in.
Yeah, and as you know, I do some development, so I'm anxious for this. I may build it actually into my app so that you will be able to export it in this format when it becomes available. But the other thing that you may or may not be aware of is that they've been working hand in hand with Autodesk to incorporate the Spark open source SDK into Windows 10. So, I think personally Microsoft is making a lot of good moves to integrate Windows 10 as the go-to operating. I mean, both of us use it. We have our reservations on the operating system, but if you want to do 3D or 3D fabrication, a lot of the tools are only available in Windows, and I think they're aware of this. And now, they're actually working with these different companies. They're trying to make Windows 10 the go-to place to do all of your 3D fabrication, design, and so forth. And having Autodesk, which I use the tools, and in fact, I think Dassault was also part of that consortium. So they're behind this. So you've got basically juggernauts in design, juggernauts in the fabrication world, all working with Microsoft. So
Microsoft
I actually
doing a really good job. Microsoft, keep it up. Keep it up.
And as you said, you own some stock in Apple. Well, my portfolio has some Microsoft staff. So I don't know if I need to identify that or not, but it's not that much. So I've always kind of rooted for Microsoft. They've had some bad years, but since, what's his name? Nadella, Satya, their new CEO, with supposedly some background guidance from Bill Gates, is, I think, back on track.
Oh yeah, and I think they're doing a great job. They're doing a great job. I think that what they're doing is they've expanded their methods, or they've expanded their perception of things or the way that they operate. So it's a great time for Microsoft. They've been backing.
Are you ready to do great
open source projects? And
Microsoft integrated Autodesk Spark 3D.
And one of the things with this Autodesk
Windows
is that they're looking at incorporating it into Fusion
with Spark,
360.
users will be able to reliably 3D print from Windows 10 apps, regardless of their software, materials, or printer choices.
Fusion 360, put on my HoloLens, and be able to actually see my object on my desktop. I'm a big fan of it because even though 3D fabrication, or I should say personal 3D fabrication is here, to be able to actually see an object and look around it before even printing it just adds another value. And especially if you'll be able to manipulate those objects and check their performance, their fit and finish before actually having to print something. It'll be really cool. So, lots of good things going out there. I like the fact that Microsoft has reached out to other companies to kind of move forward and incorporate a lot of stuff. And so here's a product that's interesting, and I tried to see if I could get a demo. They now have, I've used it in the past because some of their other ones, called 3D Print Studio.
Hey, Mike, turn your turn the video behind the audio. I can't really hear you. There you go.
Okay, how about now? I turned it all the way off.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Much better.
Thank you. Okay,
wow,
so if you didn't hear that, essentially with the Spark SDK involved in Windows 10, they're hoping to incorporate things like their Fusion 360 with the HoloLens to be able to give you the ability to look at your object as though it were real before even printing. The Spark SDK also will have a new 3D print engine with a, what do you want to call it, a user interface that I've seen some images, and if you watch the video, you can see it. I was hoping to be able to actually download it and try it out, but it's not available. But you can go out and sign up for the Spark SDK and be put on their private beta list if you want to be able to go out there and see it for yourself if you're a developer, or maybe just a very curious enthusiast. Now, in any case, let's move on to your next item.
All right. Well, my next item is a breakthrough in 3D printer boards. A new board called the Real board is set to allow printers to access up to 1,800 millimeters per second, which is the fastest print speed so far of any board. Typically today with Rambo boards and Arduino-based boards, we can usually get between 50 and 150 millimeters per second. That's how fast it can process G-code and actually extrude material. This board is set to bring up the processing power, I don't know, what is that, 10-fold at least. So here's what the board looks like. And it looks like a pretty capable board. It's got a lot of connectors.
Wow. What is this board again?
It's called the Real board, and you can find out about it at createitreal.com. And it's based, the creator is out of Denmark, and his name is Jeremy Pierre Gay. Maybe we'll try to have him on the show so he can tell us about it. And
yes.
Yeah, and so he's definitely, he's on the cutting edge, especially, so they're, the things like the clip technology on the Carbon 3D printer, where speeds are now going to be going up tenfold.
Yeah, well, if you remember, that's one of the things that I mentioned. This is probably going to be one of the hurdles in having a processor. Oh, this is really cool. What a great find, Chris. And it looks like the processor is part of a daughter board system, so if it improves it, you can just switch it out.
That's right.
That's a fancy, and it looks like it's got a standard PC power supply connection off there on the left.
Yeah, and so this ain't your ordinary Rambo. So pretty cool, exciting stuff. As usual, every week we're bringing you the latest and greatest in the 3D realm.
Okay, so one question. Obviously, I'll have to go out and look at it. Is there a price on it yet, Chris?
Not that I know of, but let me look here. They might have it. Create It Real motherboard, development kit, Orine. They don't have a price. Not quite yet.
Okay, so it might be a little pricey, but you're probably getting a lot of horsepower for it. Well, we've had the Ultimaker group on several times. Those people out in the Netherlands, that area has just got a lot of sharp 3D people. Okay, let's move on to my next item, and this is part of our Scanner Darkly section. And this is a new technology, I guess right now it's at the Northwestern University. I'll play a little video.
Active 3D scanning projects light into the scene to produce high-quality depth information.
Down the quad audio so that
However, live 3D scanning in the wild.
So right
is
now they're
difficult
kind of
because external
talking
light
about
sources like the sun
previous
swamp the
technologies like the Kinect and how
Even
they
a fluorescent
work.
bulb is bright
And
enough to overwhelm a Microsoft Kinect
and
and
they
cause
are
the
also
3D scan
looking
to
at
fail.
the disadvantages of it. As we're aware of, they use
Our
infrared
motion
patterns.
contrast
So
3D
they've
scanning
tried to
technology
come up
offers
with a
the ability to
solution
overcome these
that
real-world challenges.
kind
Our
of
prototype can
works
provide live
to
depth
the
data
advantage
even
of
when the bulb is many
providing
times brighter than the
scan
scanning source.
capability even under intense light or
This
more
benefits
ambient
autonomous
light. And if you
vehicles and
remember, we've
augmented
had
reality
those
systems,
issues.
which require low-power, real-time 3D scanning.
So I guess they've done some research.
more,
So what they've
visit
come up with,
photolab.northwestern.edu.
just very quickly as this is going over, I guess it's done now, but I'll bounce back to my desktop. Here it is. So essentially what they've done is they've created this prototype, which includes a pico projector and an imager, and they're able to use that to create a projected pattern, very similar to the David, I'm assuming. I haven't done a lot of it, but then they had some comparisons on scans. And personally, and I made a comment here on this out at, where are we at? 3ders.org in the comment area. It, in my opinion, doesn't really reflect quality that you can actually get from laser scans. I don't know which laser scanner they're using. As you'll see later on with my NextEngine, performance can be better. However, there is a caveat. It does take time with a laser scanner. And then they showed the Kinect. Well, this is where I kind
Scroll
of
down a bit.
raised my eyebrow. Sure.
Oh, I see. That's the, oh, okay, the reference photos on the left.
Right.
Got
But
it.
if you remember, Chris, and I'm going to jump to it right now, even though I think this is great because it obviously is looking at going past some of the disadvantages of the Kinect, which is not being able to use this in outdoors pretty much. You have to keep your ambient light down. But I have been using it and working with occipital. They now use a technique that still allows you to scan by using what they call RGBD, which uses RGB information to use reference to stitch scans together. So you can actually have more light, which is important if you're capturing texture. So I'm going to bounce. If you remember, Chris, I have been working probably the last year on my 4i system, now coming out with version 2. And you've seen this before, but I've went ahead and put it out on Sketchfab, and like I said, put a note in there. This is a 5-second scan of, obviously, you know, my wife Siobhan, using the new lens system. And you know, even though it's a little rough, if I would have laid it a little longer, maybe a few more seconds, it would smooth out some of these. But for 5 seconds, if you go back to it, it is pretty close to the reference sculpture here. And this is a human being. And one of the nice things about using infrared light is that you don't have to worry about your eyes being blinded by a bright light source, which is the issue with using the RTEC, because it flashes almost like strobes, including the Fuel 3D, so you get this big bright blink. So if you're trying to do children or something like that, it could be an issue. But if you notice the Kinect comparison here versus mine, I think it's not really giving the Kinect or the PrimeSense technology a real shake. Obviously, they are trying to tout the advantages of their system, but as you can see, these systems are improving all the time, including the PrimeSense. So I just wanted to identify that, plus give a little plug to myself. You know, hey, we are moving this forward. Occipital has a real nice product, and it's reasonably priced. You know, again, this is a research product. We don't have pricing on it, but kudos, we're still moving the technology forward, and maybe I'll see about getting one of these and having a 4 eyes for it. Who knows? Okay, well, that's Scanner Darkly, and move on to your next item, Chris.
Well, next item, I guess, would be our projects of the week. So we can jump right into kind of what I'm working on. As you know, a few months back, we had the guys from Print to Peer on, right? Or we had one of the guys from Print to Peer, trying to remember his name, which is a solution. I can quickly pull it up. Print to Peer lets you take your Raspberry Pi, plug it into a 3D printer, and that's network enabled, and it makes basically a network enabled printer out of your Raspberry Pi. So what I have done is I got myself since I've already been using my other 2 Raspberry Pis, I had to get the new one, the Rev 2.
You got a Raspberry Pi too?
I got one in the mail, and I've got this handy dandy new case that I printed out.
You
with
printed
the camera.
it?
Yeah, printed the case.
You, mister. Where's my case?
You want a case? I'll print you a case. And then it's got a little camera case, and you can stick this however I set it up when I finally get it set up, and it's going to be my little print-to-peer box to help. It'll free up one of my CAD workstations and make my Lulzbot Mini a new little print-to-peer box. So I won't have to have a full-fledged computer to run. Because one of the things about the Lulzbot Mini is this is a great printer, but no SD card capability.
Oh,
so
well, this will be perfect for it.
Yeah, so I can just put my Lulzbot Mini in someplace else, park it there, and plug this into it anywhere that I have a network connection. You can even wirelessly enable it, and then I can shoot my G-code right over to it. So pretty cool.
So what is it again that you're using? What's the print-to-peer or peer-to-print software that you're using?
Yeah, print-to-peer. So typically I'll use Cura as my slicer, and then send over the G-code. But I think they have their own slicer built in. I'm not sure. I haven't actually set it up and used it yet. So we'll have to check back next week.
I think I have. I think I backed them, and I received their software. But one of the things when we talked about it several months ago is, yes, they do include their own slicer, but didn't have a G-code input. Do they have that now?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet.
Okay. So, which is one of the reasons, and sadly, my memory is failing me again. We've had another group on, the same people behind GrabCAD, if I remember correctly. They have a version, and sadly, I can't remember the name. And we've had, I've talked about it. Do I have it on my AstroBox?
Yeah, AstroPrint.
Okay, AstroPrint does do G-code, and it also is Raspberry Pi compatible.
Oh, is it? You don't have to actually buy the Astro box.
Nope.
So AstroPrint, you can actually upload an image. So who knows? Right. We might go that route as well.
Okay. Well, I really like it. So I mean, no negatives towards print-to-peer, but I like AstroBox a little better. Why? Because they do provide direct G-code input, and I've used it several times, and it works great. So take a look at that one. Again, not promoting one over the other, but I felt that since I've used both, that one worked well. And yes, they do have a Raspberry Pi image, and obviously being the Raspberry Pi is compatible with the Raspberry Pi 2. I've been wanting to do this, so if you beat me to it, I want to see how much of a performance gain you get. And it also has camera compatibility, so you'll be able to use your camera. And another thing, if you notice the ribbon cable there, or not ribbon, is somewhat short. Amazon does have, what do you want to call it, longer lengths. So if you find that that's too short, you can get longer lengths of that for the camera there. And the camera works pretty good. I was very surprised at that little camera's capability. Well, very cool, Chris. And
yeah,
I really look forward to seeing what you think about using either print-to-peer or AstroBox and that. Okay, well, I'm going to move on to my next item, and I'm going to jump back a little bit. I've got a video that I'm going to show, and but before I do that, I'll just bring up their website. We've talked about bioprinting for some time, but it's been mainly in the lab, research centers, universities. But it looks like this company is actually moving forward with creating a version that you could take home with you. I don't know what you would do with it. I guess if I lost an ear, I could print a new ear. But they have some interesting ideas behind how it works. Essentially, they extrude a polymer with tissue embedded in it. And one of the things that they say makes their product a little different is instead of using UV as a curing process, which they say can also kill cells, which we know because UV is used to kill bacteria, they use blue light, which I guess is easier on the cells, so you don't lose as many cells.
Yeah, that's an interesting. That's actually a really interesting thing that you mentioned that, Mike, because I was just researching this last night. 380 nanometers of light, in particular, is right outside of the ultraviolet spectrum that we can see. Is actually energizing to our DNA and our cells in our body. So some people are actually talking about developing some sort of laser at 380 nanometers and actually seeing what kind of effect it has, short-term, long-term effects on the human body.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
well,
so they might actually, this actually might be along the right track. So no UV, they're using blue light.
Yep, blue light. It says it has obviously a 100 nanometer resolution. So yeah, it's about the same as their standard extruder. And like I said, they actually extrude a process and then use the blue light in order to, I guess, fortify the structure so the cells can grow.
So see, Mike, I told you we were going to live till 3,000.
I don't know. I better keep busy, otherwise I'm going to be really bored. But the important thing is that this looks like a product that's coming in the market. So it's coming out of the lab and actually going to be in our homes.
This stuff,
I lost my
science
ear.
fiction in our living room, man.
I'll print you a new one.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Obviously, it's probably not going to have.
I have it. Okay, this company is going to could be $1 billion company overnight. They just got to get into the male enhancement category. And
all right.
Boom.
Hey, remember, we are family friendly.
I am buying stock.
Family friendly.
Okay.
Okay,
cool.
So let me go ahead and jump into my projects. I've had a couple, and well, I'll tell you, one of the projects that I have, I'm going to bounce back to actually, I'm going to do this. One of my projects has been a personal project. As I mentioned before the show, and I was hoping that he would join us, he kind of got lost. I have a biological son that I have not seen for many years, 27 to be exact. And we just reconnected earlier this week, and I have to thank technology for that. He friended me on Facebook, and let's just say there was some misunderstanding amongst a lot of people, and we finally waded through that, and it's been really exciting. As I said earlier in the show, it's kind of like looking at my twin. I wish whatever reason he had to drop out, but it's pretty scary. My wife Siobhan, which I've talked about a number of times, said that's very eerie, and his mannerism is very similar to mine. But more importantly, he's a geek, just like me. Actually, he's better than me. He actually got his computer engineering degree. He's been in practice for 10 years. I think he's doing more electrical engineering work. He signs off, I guess, electrical for buildings and so forth. We still need to discuss exactly what he does, but he's got this interesting project that he's moving forward with. And I guess, and I'm not very familiar with the process. So James, if you're out there listening, hey, I'm sorry if I butcher this, but essentially there is a way that you can use PVCs for foundations. Are you aware of this, Chris? And I don't know.
PVC for your build foundation?
Yes.
So I'm not sure exactly what my build trays are made out of for the Fortis. I think they're ABS, but they might be.
No, I'm talking house. Oh, hey, he's jumped
back.
Oh, there he is.
He
can tell us himself. So, James, if you were listening, I just introduced you. So, again, not only is he my son, but also he has a lot of technical background, and he is working on his own projects. I introduced him. Hey, so there he is.
Oh.
So, as mentioned, if there is such thing as clones, yeah, there is something like that between us. But as mentioned, He is also a computer engineer. He's been practicing for about 10 years. He's got this great project he's got some ideas on, so I turned him on to Fusion 360. So he's been working with it. The image behind me is a render that I did that he gave me some samples for. I will let him kind of talk about it and where he plans to go with using 3D. Chris, he had a question for you because something that he has created is going to need some of your expertise, so I let you have the mic, James.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
You're great.
Hey, James.
My internet connection is really bad. I don't know if the conference room was worse, but
no, it's actually
yeah,
a lot better.
I guess at my desk it's better. I was watching you guys on YouTube right now, and basically my little project was trying not to say anything about the PVC, but basically it's going to be able to place PVC sequentially, so you can build a foundation and then you can stack on top of it, and basically what I like to call it, the honeycomb. I called it robot, but Mike came up with a better name, so we're calling it the honeycomb drone. And basically it kind of crawls along the PVC to get to the spots it needs to get to, and then it will grab PVC from the sides and place it. So if you have an uneven grade, it would place these PVCs, let's just say from the highest point, in an even path, so you would have a flat foundation from that. Looking at the price, the same PVC versus concrete per square foot is about half the price. You may fill in a little bit of it with concrete, but it gives you a potential there. And just like ants or bees, it takes a lot of little workers to build something, and it's incredible what ants and bees or any type of those insects can do, just because there's a lot of them. They're not very sophisticated. It's just they know a certain task and they do it. And if you can get a lot of these guys to do it, I think construction industry could have a new future. We'll see.
Definitely.
It's not to interrupt you, but Chris is a beekeeper, so he's fully aware of how bees function. So it's kind of funny, this analogy with bees.
Well, I think the more you know, the less you know about bees. It's crazy. The more I watch them, the less I understand them. It's just crazy. They have this whole world they live in that's pretty different than the human existence, and it's just, we think as humans, hey, we're this supreme being, and we're so, but at the same time, I think bees kind of have this understanding of kind of their oneness, and how interconnected they are. Whereas humans nowadays, we're kind of disconnected, but luckily in our generation, what we're seeing is the reconnection, and people kind of thinking about these ideas again and kind of coming together, and that's what the social media is doing. I mean, if you take you and YouTube, as an example, we're now coming back together and thinking, okay, let's remove this ego from the human existence, and now and understand that we all are on this planet together, and we all are operating as one conscious being in a way, and beehives are kind of the same way. So what a cool project.
What are you saying? We're just hives? We're the board.
We're like a big hive. The world is our hive, and we have to be careful with it, because humans, we have this, I don't know what it is about our predisposition is to blow ourselves up. We just create these things that are doomsday scenarios for no reason. It doesn't gain us anything really in the end. It's like creating nuclear bombs doesn't really gain us anything in the end. So we gotta look more past those kind of things and come together again, full circle. So yeah, learn from the bees. Definitely take things the bees are doing and incorporate them into the human existence. It's definitely a good idea.
Okay, thank you, Mother Teresa, Chris. Okay, so let's move back on to some geekness.
Okay, back to the geek.
Behind you, I rendered something that he sent to me, and didn't think that he may have an image of it, and I probably let more out of the cat out of the bag, and he's probably going to get angry me in the future. But, but essentially, he's got some unique ideas, and he's looking at obviously using Fusion 360 to create some 3D models, and then obviously print them. And so one of the questions that he presented to me, but I thought the print whisperer would have a better understanding or idea of it. He wants to create a structure with dissolvable support materials so that all he has to do is dissolve it and then have a moving mechanism. What do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah. So you definitely can do that. If it needs to be printed unibody one way or another, that might be a good way to go. Although oftentimes it makes more sense from a serviceability standpoint. Sometimes, especially with your mechanical design, to make it so that you only need to replace one component. So make it so that it can be disassembled and you could replace one component. So I think any smart design, simpler is always better. Obviously, that was like the rule of thumb that we can take from Steve Jobs: is be simple, go simple. And oftentimes simple is much harder than complex. But it almost always results in a better design. So what I would do typically in most mechanical designs is I would make it so that it can be open and then serviced, and I would print the components separate just for future serviceability. However, if there was a reason behind why you wanted to print it as a unibody, then definitely you can print things with dissolvable support, and you can have fully working parts. Plus, there is some if you're trying to protect proprietary intellectual property, if you wanted to make it so it was not possible to disassemble it without destroying it, and that's definitely another reason that I think we're going to see more of that in the future moving forward too. Is people that are trying to protect their designs, they're going to be protecting their intellectual property by printing things that can't be disassembled without destroying them. So, and we've talked about that before.
For me, it's trying to build everything all at once is more of a throwaway thought. We've got tablets and phones now, and do we go fix them? No, we just throw them away. I think with 3D printing, the cost of production is going dramatically down. So if you can somehow lessen the amount of labor it takes to actually get to a final product, that's my goal, especially when it comes to mechanical parts.
Yeah. So another tip would be, if you're trying to assemble these, if it was something that needed to be assembled, you might even find out a way to 3D print, manufacture. What I always recommend to my clients that come to me for CAD is start with as many off-the-shelf components as you possibly can. So rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, there might already be components or mechanical assemblies that are already accomplishing the same task that you're trying to accomplish out there, at least part of it. And then combining those materials, because that's all we're really doing nowadays, is we're taking information from over here and information from over here, or parts from over here, and we're just combining them together and making new products that way. So that's like, I would say, a huge amount of new products, innovative products that they're just connecting the dots. That's all they're doing. And so yeah, I would say if you're going to try to lower your cost, you're probably better off starting with some already off-the-shelf component that's already there, like either a PVC pipe or whatever, and then printing, as economically as possible, whatever that insert might be. So that's
well, I think in future episodes I'll be attending, and you'll
be able to reveal more. Yeah, yeah. Once I understand, yeah, I don't want to like ask you too much, pry too much, because it sounds like you might have some stuff that you're not ready to let out of the bag yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I probably said too much. One of the things that I wanted James to come on is, I do have something called the digital desktop, And with him now using Fusion 360 and with his 10 years of engineering experience, I think I'll just hand it off to him. He can give us his personal experiences. He creates this, maybe a step-by-step on some of the things that he learned. So hopefully we'll have him on in future episodes. And so again, James, sorry for letting something out of the bag that you didn't want, but I think it's an exciting and interesting idea. And obviously we share something in common. We both seem to have some creativity and some ingenuity.
Probably about 99% of the people watching this don't know what the heck I'm talking about right now.
Well, I did, so, but I'm not very smart, so we'll have to move on. Okay, so on to some other items, other than, I hate to say that, yeah, James was my project of the week, but actually he kind of was, and it's been a very fun project. All right, so I'll move on, and the other thing that I was working on this week is, if you remember, I talked to a guy who's doing car restorations, and he's been working on a caboose. So I went over there, and he gave me this arm, as you can see in behind me, and I'm also going to jump to, actually I guess I can go back to you can see it here. This is the version that I scanned, and this is not made anymore. So one of the advantages of scanning and reproducing in 3D, and somebody said, well, why didn't you just cast this? Well, part of the reason is once you have it in the digital domain, you can use digital tools to clean it up and redo it. And that's one of the things that I did. In fact, you can't see it here, but the NextEngine scanner has a resolution that was actually capable of seeing the writing, if you can see it in here, the yellow writing, which is with, I guess, paint. It was able, because there is no texture on the item behind me, it was able to pick up the depth information. So we're looking at, gosh, I don't know, 100 microns? I don't know, very thin.
That's a scan behind you.
That's the scan behind me. This is the
real object. Can you move it around?
I cannot. It's just a static image. I haven't put it out yet, but I'll put it on Sketchfab maybe. But yeah, trust me, it looks identical. Wow. And so what we're going to do next, I'm going to call him today or email him, is that he's probably going to use your services, Chris, to print it out. But he can go anywhere with it. I don't know how many of these he's going to use. The caboose has multiple seats. So if he's trying to stay authentic, this is a good way of doing it. If you have a model, even if it's broken, you can now use digital tools to reconstruct it and then fabricate it. And as you know, we can also then duplicate it using low-tech methods of creating molds and so forth. But the important thing is the NextEngine isn't a really expensive scanner. Their HD version, I think, is $3,500. That does not include any of the software. There's a Pro version, plus there are some superb tools to go from mesh, which is what's behind me, to a solid model, which is what you'll need to use for parametric modeling. And that is really kind of the holy grail. Whoever figures out how to go from mesh to a really good solid model, they're going to make a lot of cash, because right now it is still very manual, intensive. Because literally, a mesh contains a lot of faces. You have to figure out how that face matches up to a solid mathematical model, let's say one plane, so you have to guide it. But they're getting better, and they're one of the sources that people
feature recognition.
Feature
recognition. It can actually recognize, it not only will build a solid model from your mesh or from a dummy geometry file, but it'll actually go through and try to figure out all the features to build it in the feature tree. And so that there's parameters that you can go in, you want to change a hole size from 4 millimeter to 5 millimeter, boom, you can do it. So it's pretty cool.
Now, if I remember correctly, the version of SolidWorks that you have has that in it, right?
Yeah, I think that was one of the ones that they incorporated in 2012 or 2013, and so we're on 2015 now, and it's gotten better and better and better. It'll even figure out drafts, it'll figure out chamfers and all these complex angles. You can go in fillets, it'll even figure out fillets. So, I want to change that little around to...
If I sent you this mesh, you could run it through that and see how well it does. Now, in the past,
we'll see how well it does.
Now, in the past, it hasn't been very good. right?
It's not. It's not there yet, and it obviously depends on it depends on a few factors. One being the quality of your mesh data. Two being the proficiency of the person using the software in that specific, So and it's like any CAD person will tell you, is like the more understanding of the project and what you're trying to accomplish, the better they can kind of, because you're going to obviously have to tweak it a little bit. It's going to figure it out. It might figure it out 90% of the way, 80% of the way, and do most of the work for you. But then there's going to be still things that you're going to need to check in the model to double check so that it fits right or functions properly. So a lot of times, like in your case, you could take that mesh file and go right to a 3D printer. So you could copy it, replicate it, right? But if you wanted to make any changes to it at all, then yeah, you would probably want the solid geometry. And if you wanted it to fit, then you definitely need to have somebody that has a thorough understanding of that piece and sit with one-on-one with them, or and communicate with them about what their needs are.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm finding, as you know, that I've been doing scanning as a service is, in this case the model is fairly simple, so the scan was very good. But I had somebody the other day, and this is one of the reasons I brought it in, who brought me, I'm assuming, either a quadcopter or some type of autonomous vehicle blade. Let's just say I have some ideas that they're trying to circumvent whoever the distributor is in this case. But a blade has a very, very thin edge. Well, I was very surprised how well the NextEngine did in capturing that. Problem is, as you said, now how do we convert that into a solid model? And this is where a lot of people are surprised when you tell them, well, first of all, I charge $75 an hour for scans. So a scan like this here took about an hour scanning, and then I do a little cleanup. So altogether, it's about $150. People think that they can go down to the library and just, well, it cost me 10 cents to make a copy. Why is it so expensive? And they don't realize, one, the technology is more expensive, and two, there's labor involved, and it's not just a librarian making a copy for you. The other thing is, when you want to convert it to a solid model, this could then elevate to $300 to $500, and they really don't understand. Well, that's the issue. And as you said, yes, the conversion is about 90%. And I liken it to, if you've got some 2D experience, going from a graphic to a vector drawing. Even though Illustrator has a tool, it's not perfect, and you still have to go in and clean it up. And so this is the reason for it. There's still some manual work. It's not completely autonomous, and it's really difficult to inform people. And I did have earlier, one of my items was how the market seems to be bottoming out in 3D. Stratasys is really at an all-time low, as well as 3D System, and I think it was kind of oversold. And I think what people or the consumer expects versus what's the reality, as we know, is always the hype engine, and now we're settling down to reality. And hopefully people realize that this is never going to be as cheap as going to the library and making a copy or printing out something, because you're working with a third axis. It's getting better.
I think another. So I might just disagree slightly with you, Mike, on this one, but
you're allowed to.
Yeah, I myself, knowing learning in the business school, how the stock market really works, and kind of it's basically a baseball card trading game. And most people don't realize how disconnected it is from the reality of business. Like, the day-to-day operations really don't have anything to do with the stock price. They are definitely related in a perceived value sense, but the stock price of Stratasys and 3D printing do not tell the whole story at all. I don't even think they really even tell a real part of the story. I agree with you. Yeah, I think the reason that they're suffering has to do with the fact that they are proprietary technologies, they are centralized technologies, and I think all proprietary, all centralized technology is having a major kind of backlash, and the open source movement and the decentralized technologies are exploding. And so you're seeing things like these LulzBots and the the rep wraps, the Cossels, the Rostock Maxes, and all that in the 3D printing sector exploding. I mean, you just look at
I think
that
it's
Tico printer that we saw. We had the Tico people on our show a few weeks ago for the new Kickstarter. They passed $3 million. $3 million. They got $3 million. Boom, like that.
Well, obviously we had them on. We talked about they really know what they were doing, and they have a very affordable printer. And I agree with you. Yes, the affordability is eroding these other, what we'll call them dinosaurs, and that reflects in the stock price. The other thing is too that and maybe I was unfair. We're really going back to what their stock was before a little bit of the hype. And now we're going back to what their original stock price is when they were still proprietary and they were selling their large systems in the quantity that they were selling. So that,
I think it's a lot of people. They're like, oh, 3D printing, and they don't really fully understand that 3D printing isn't just Stratasys and 3D Systems, and they want to go buy stock like they're all of a sudden into 3D printing because they bought stock. No, if you want to get into 3D printing, you buy a 3D printer, you get into it.
You go buy one.
Go buy one. Get
what
one
I think on your desk. What I think is pretty exciting about the 3D printing industry and the cost is companies like Shapeway, which I believe you guys have mentioned on previous shows.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, I'm a big fan of them.
I think that is going to be the future where you can not mass produce in a sense, but I think custom items is going to be the next big thing here in the States. Because people want custom rings, they want their names on it, they want pictures of their kids and products. I mean, there's an endless, I guess, revenue stream of what you can do. The real thing is getting people to be able to actually make it themselves to reduce costs. But the overseas China 3D printing I don't think will be competitive because of the shipping and the language barrier. So that. I think it's going to really grow a whole new industry in that sense here, just for companies that can do the 3D printing.
Yeah, James, I'll get to disagree with you a little bit. Actually, the Chinese are behind a lot of what the lower end industry is pushing in the 3D market. XYZ printing, which we did a brief interview when I was at CES, plus the Flash Forge, as well as the printer behind the Dremel, are all Chinese based. So like they did with other markets, they're kind of the engine behind, or the physical engine behind some of these things.
Yeah, I think he's more referring to the actual as a service bureau, right? As selling it as a service bureau. Yeah, shipping too. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's why we're going to see the localization. And another huge one, obviously, that's just like in its infancy right now, that goes back to this whole 3D scanning thing, is the actual content creation, replication of data, these huge parts repositories. So we're already seeing like the iTunes of digital content for 3D. We're seeing all these little nooks and crannies pop up. Thingiverse, UImagine, 3D GoGo, CG Trader, all of these. Yeah, GrabCAD. Oh, I mean, they're exploding. GrabCAD got bought last year, $100 million. They've only been around for 3 years. It's a 3-year-old company, $100 million.
Yeah. So we're going to see more of this. And the thing is, I think Shapeways is a private company, so they're not traded, and I'm pretty sure publicly. So we don't really know how much of an increase in their revenue stream has been since they, I don't know, when did they come out? Not that long ago, 3 or 4 years ago. So we don't know what they're actually making. So some of these companies might be doing really well. Luzbot might be another company that's had some fantastic. We've had CNC on. They're probably doing better. So we don't know some of these more private or smaller companies. And so yes, I agree with you. Stratasys and 3D Systems should not be the indicators, and obviously MakerBot, which kind of flew, in my opinion, to the top. And one of the items, actually, I don't have it up here, but there was an article. It'll be in the show notes. So there was some guy pretty much identified what we did. The reason that MakerBot is having trouble now is they came out with their new line of printers, and the area that needed the most emphasis was their extruder and their head, and that has been their biggest weakness, which dropped their, what do you want to call it, their favorite status or appreciation, what do they call it, down to 10%.
User approval.
User approval to 10%. So yeah, that would affect your sales.
Yeah.
So I'll have that in the show notes. You can read about that. Oh well. So let's kind of move on. My other, let's see, do I have another project here? Nope. I have an open box, and I'm going to jump to my other camera, and we'll talk about that real quick. You know, for us that are doing a lot of design, I guess I can just bring it up here. The computer is still very important to that, and having a nice 3D card is also important to it. So some of the things when I scan, the scanning software is now taking advantage of the
GPU.
Huh?
The GPU.
Yes, the GPU. The NVIDIA is the one that I like. Obviously, AMD has kind of the competition. Both of them create professional cards, but one, they're more expensive. And two, I don't know for some things if they're actually beneficial. Well, if you've been keeping up with NVIDIA, the GeForce series of cards, they've come out with the Maxwell chipset. And it has provided something that's extremely important, and that's the CUDA cores for doing, you know, three-dimensional solving and providing better rendering and quicker rendering. It's very important to the company that we just talked about earlier with their new light channel engine. They also have a real-time renderer, Octane. So it's important to have a great card. However, I try to keep my machines small. A lot of times the better cards, one, are more expensive, and two, are long, and they don't fit unless you got a huge tank of a machine. And I try to keep my cards kind. So I made the mistake and didn't think about it, and I bought
Out of
originally.
all the people that gets relegated to a mid-size case, Mike, I would have thought you were a full-size case kind of guy.
Yeah, ha ha ha. I just wear that around my waist. No, I do have a full size. I don't use it anymore. And I kind of like the engineering of trying to create as many things into a smaller package. You know, it's kind of cool that if you have a really tiny package and it has the horsepower of a workstation, I don't know, there's just some.
Are you innuendoing again?
Okay. Yeah, Chris, keep the comments friendly. Okay, so this is the Gigabyte half-size card. It is based upon the GeForce 970, which isn't their top of the line, but it is close to it. And normally they're out to here. So this is the mini ITX version of it. They said the only complaint with this is that it uses, if you know, the copper cooling for the chip itself to radiate it, and it only has a single fan, and they say it kind of whines, and I think some people have returned it for that, but I can tolerate that, I think. But other than that, the Maxwell chipset is cooler, draws less power. If you notice, some of the horsepower cards have dual connectors for power. This one is back to a single. So I'm looking forward to plugging this in today and seeing how it works out. Price of this, I can't say it's real pricey. It's about $250 to $300 depending on the RAM that you get into it, which is not a real significant price. They have a lower value version, I think it's the 960 that you can get for about $150. But I wanted to, if I was going to replace the card in it, I wanted to get something that actually had some performance, not like 10 or 15%. So this will actually give me about 100% improvement, especially in scanning, which now I'm getting about 30 frames per second, so it should jump it up a little bit more, and be able to render a little bit faster on my machine. So I'm looking forward to putting it in today and moving forward with it. So obviously it's kind of geeky, so that's kind of the hands-on open box thing. So let's go into...
Would you be able to integrate FPGA into the camera scanning process at all?
Currently, no, actually, you know, that is a possibility. The company that I work with, Occipital, essentially the PrimeSense sensor does a lot of things on board, and it sends out two streams. Actually, it sends out one stream on their version. It sends out the depth information, so it's So it does provide that, so you don't get raw information. I don't know if it does even provide raw information. But you have to take that depth information, take the slices, and convert them into a mesh. So you have to use, OpenGL libraries in order to do that conversion. And luckily, a lot of that has now been supported with GPUs, so it really enhances that functionality. I don't work a lot with OpenGL, so I've got to take some primer classes, or primer, depending on how you want to pronounce that, to get a little bit more up to snuff on it, because I will need it here shortly. But yes, that could be happening. In fact, I think both Google and Intel have done what you've just said, and yes, they are using FPGAs, or actually maybe in a custom chip, to provide all of that on a chip. So it will happen, and then you'll see the same thing that I'm using now all built into a cell phone. In fact, who knows what Apple has done behind closed doors? They actually bought PrimeSense, and they may be doing what you're saying right now as we speak, James. So who knows? I hope not anytime soon, because my whole product line would go down the tubes. So let's not do it this year. Okay, so where are we at? Chris, how about the Print Whisper? What do you got for us?
Well, I've got one more product of the week that I gotta tell you. I gotta share it. Okay, so
all right.
we've got what was the big movie that came out on Friday, huh?
I don't know. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay. It was Avengers: Age of Ultron. Came out in the theaters. So last week on Thursday was my birthday. Obviously, we went over it on Friday, and my lady, I was a lucky guy, she surprised me, took me up to the Metreon up in San Francisco, see the Avengers 3D IMAX experience. And I have to give you a little tip here, because if you've gone and seen the 3D IMAX, had a 3D IMAX experience, there absolutely are hands down the best movie experience you can possibly have, but you have to make sure you do it the right way. So I'm going to give you a little tip. There's a website you can go and check out. They have these things called IMAX versus LIMAX, and so LIMAX, they have these IMAX theaters now. You can go and they say IMAX on a lot of theaters now, and what they are is they're like rebuilt IMAX theaters, and what you're actually doing is you're getting gypped, because they're not real. They're not real IMAX experiences. So this if you just it's in the show notes, and there's actually a Google Calendar, and these guys have updated it, I think up through like last month, and this will actually show you where the fakes are and where the real ones are. So like the Metreon, for instance, that's a real one. That's a real one. That's the one you want to go to. There's these other ones, like I went to one a few months ago.
Here, do me a favor, Chris. Stay up there for a moment. I want to tell James. Go up. Okay, what's that one, the other green? Zoom in on it, in that same
Sacramento?
area. No, Dublin, right?
Oh, right.
James, there's a story behind that. I'll tell you later. Somebody that is related to you was there, and that's all I'll say right now.
Okay,
I didn't know that. I've gone to Dublin a couple times. All right, Chris, go ahead.
A few months ago, I was down in the LA area and went to one, and it was kind of in a little bit of the ghetto. I think it was like down here. Yep, this one here, Southgate. And we were totally disappointed. And,
no wonder.
And we saw Chappie, and I loved the movie Chappie. I know it got mixed reviews, and I really loved it. And
did you say you like it?
But the IMAX, I loved it. I thought it was amazing. Oh. But we went into the theater and paid the full IMAX. It wasn't even a 3D IMAX. It was just a regular IMAX, and I love the regular. But we went into the theater and we're like, this isn't an IMAX. This is a regular theater. Why are they calling it an IMAX? And some of the other ones I've been to are kind of the same way. But if you go to a real IMAX and you see a 3D IMAX at a real one, so go to this this map, check out a real one, and go and see yourself the 3D Avengers. And you can actually pick your seat now online in a lot of these theaters, like the Metreon, which is in downtown San Francisco, which is probably my favorite IMAX of any of them I've ever been to. And I've been to a lot of IMAX by now. But if you haven't seen Avengers, or even if you have, go check it out. Go check it out. It is, my girlfriend and I, we were laughing the whole movie. It is such a good time. Probably one of the better movies I've seen. in 3D, because it's a totally different. A lot of people are not even into the 3D movie thing, which I have kind of mixed feelings about. Even 3D when I see them in the regular theater, they just don't really do it for me. But the 3D IMAX experience at a real IMAX is just it's a real experience.
All right, Chris. I'm going to burst your bubble. Go ahead, James.
The only problem I have with 3D movies is when they try to make it 3D, like things pop out at you. I don't need that. 3D movies, just the 3D aspect just makes it look better. That's it. I don't need things popping at my face. You know, that just gives me headaches.
Well, some of the stuff in Avengers 3D Ultron, I mean, obviously everything is CGI, right? I mean, or almost everything is CGI. So they can do all kinds of tricky stuff. And yeah, it doesn't need to be popping out at your face, but they just make it look, it's just so cool. I don't want to give anything away. It's just
well, as you know, Chris, I am always a real big geek. I have been doing 3Ds before 3D was cool, or maybe not cool anymore. I have my own glasses that I wear. I don't use the ones in the theater. And then I have a pair that I give Siobhan that's more stylish. She has issues with 3D. It makes her sick, so she can't stand them. Plus, she hates this whole superhero comic book movies. I know. So I don't know how I'm going to get to see this movie, but I'm going to have to figure it out. But she's told me no more. She's done with it. She's been to all of them. She's put up with me. No more. So I've got to sneak out somehow.
You know what's James? Lucky for us? We actually have a real one in Fresno. 2 hours.
That's still a few hours.
Yeah,
that's still a few hours. Well, I went. There's one.
It's worth it.
There's one in Sacramento as well, and that's where I saw Prometheus. And you know, Prometheus got mixed reviews, but I thought the way that Ridley Scott handled the 3D in that was stupendous. I mean, as you said, James, it's one thing to just do the effect, but it's another when it actually creates an environment, and I think he did a good job with it. You know, the movie, mixed reviews. I liked it, but a lot of people didn't, and were really appalled with it. But other than that, very cool. So I didn't know you were a secret closet IMAX 3D geek.
Who, me?
Yeah. When I saw...
I love IMAX.
There was
I'm like a total IMAX fiend.
There was a movie that I saw. It was a Christmas-type movie, CGI, with Tom Hanks, who played a bunch of characters everybody thought was creepy. I can't think of it now. But I saw that in 3D, and man, I enjoyed the hell out of that. That was fun. And so, yeah, great. We're on the same page here. Okay, so where are we at? You didn't get to your 3D Whisper yet.
Oh, okay. I'll do Print Whisper. The Print Whisper.
Well, let me get the Resin Heaven. You know, last week we talked about the Moon, which is this new SLA printer that has some unique features. So, you know, I always go to my go-to guys, Brad, who did the Little RP, and Steve Hernandez, the guy behind Software Creation Workshop. And both of them said, yeah, it looks like it's going to be a great printer, and they like the flexible material that they're using for it. Obviously, going with the the Pico projector, specifically at a UV spectrum, is important, because one of the problems with DLPs is they put out white light, so a lot of the energy is wasted. Here it's concentrated, so that should be able to provide a better, what do you want to call it, model or print. So yeah, they both agree with that. They feel that they've made some good decisions. They don't think that it will have a real high resolution, because that particular type of projection element is still expensive. So going to, let's say, a 1080p would be astronomical right now. So it's probably only a 1024 or maybe a 1280 at most. The other thing that was mentioned by Steve, sadly, is he has a feeling that the software they're using is an unlicensed version of his open source product, so they haven't even given him credit for that. So I just wanted to say that, you know, if somebody from there is licensed, hey, just let Steve know you're working with it. You know, he's got a great product out there, and you know, he does have a day job, but he puts a lot of time and effort to create a great piece of software, And if you're using it, give him credit for it. Work some deal out with him. You know,
Yeah,
really
and
appreciate put some
I
time.
make sure to spread some love. You know, we've talked about ChangeTip. ChangeTip is a Bitcoin tipping engine compatible with GitHub and Reddit, and if you want to spread some love with us or anyone like Steve, you can go right into ChangeTip, put some, you know, buy him dinner, you know, spread some Bitcoin love. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. So did you get us set up, Chris? Are we set up
No,
yet?
not for ChangeTip. Yeah, well, I mean, I am, but we should definitely look at the All Things 3D. Get us a ChangeTip account, and people can tip us online. Super easy.
Yeah.
Just put
Somebody's
our
gotta pay bills here.
Bitcoin wallet address. You know, boom, put it on there.
Okay. So that, you know, it's nice to have some real experts in SLA come in and talk about their viewpoint on some of these new things. Sadly, they both have day jobs and can't join us, but they sent me some text, and I'll make sure that it's in the show notes so you can read it for yourselves. Both great guys. They've been on our show a few times. So on to your Print Whisperer tip.
The Print Whisperer returns. It's May 8th, 2015. And today, it's not really super print related because this could relate to anything in your life. It's an audiobook that I've been listening to, and it's a pretty good one. It was on the bestsellers list, and really my tip for this week is the art of tidying up or just getting organized in general. It just is such a good feeling. Sometimes you feel so cluttered and bogged down, like you can't ever move forward, like you can't get anything done, and it's probably because you need to get organized. You just need to figure out, to dedicate some time, and it's not hard. It doesn't take a lot of time to figuring things out. This is the audiobook here. This one's called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, the Japanese Art of Decluttering and Organizing. So I've been dedicating quite a bit of time throughout my weeks, organizing, throwing away, you know, removing clutter, and it's just had an overall positive experience on my whole life. I mean, it's just it's good. And it doesn't just apply to stuff; it applies to people and you know, just removing the barriers.
You just throw away people when you want to organize?
Not throwing away people, but throwing away the clutter between you and people. You know, so if you have you know, old grudges or old, you know, just grime or anything, just optimize your relationships by decluttering them. So a big one for me, this will go into printing, is I picked one of these up. This is kind of product worthy too. This is a great thing to have lying around your house. And of course, it says currently unavailable. I don't know how
it's it's a black screen?
It's a AL9. Let's just search it. Whatever it was. It was $18. I just bought this. It was $18 when I bought it. And what it lets me do is now I can print out filament reference guides, anything I want, and quickly, cheaply laminate them so that it's not like throw away. It doesn't look like something that needs to get thrown away, because most paper that sits on your desk honestly could get thrown away. But now I have this handy sheet that sits next to my printer and lets me have all my profiles, so I can double check before I get printing you know, what my temperatures are, and it's just a really handy thing. So now I've been laminating all the things. That's my thing. My thing lately, this last couple weeks, is just laminate. Anything that's a piece of paper that needs to be kept, that's as reference near something, that can get laminated. Anything else can pretty much either get filed or tossed. So because it just doesn't need to be cluttering up my space. So tip this week: get organized, tidy up your workspace,
and laminate.
Print out tool holders, you know, keep yourself organized. It's just a better way of life. It really is. It's just you get more stuff done. It's really the bottom line.
So have you ever watched Portlandia, Chris?
Oh yeah, we're watching it through again, because that's Renee and I are Portlandia. That is us. We're on that show.
So, well, I went to Portland just because of that show. But they have a meme. Remember, put a bird on it.
Put a bird on it.
We're gonna have one for you.
Put a bird on it.
No, Laminate it.
Laminate it. Yeah, that's what that is. That is a total Portlandia. I can see that. Yeah, pretty good one.
Laminate it.
Laminate.
Your own little commercial.
Cacao.
So when are you going to get your vacuum seal for your food?
Oh yeah, the vacuum seal. Yeah, I haven't gotten one of those. Oh yeah, those are yeah. We do. You know what we do is we do mason jars, but I haven't gotten into the vacuum seal. I don't know. I am exposed so much to plastic on a day-to-day basis, being in the 3D printing. I live in this
need it in your
plastic
food.
toxic environment that I have to think about how much exposure I really am getting to plastic, because it starts to add up. So I have to detox at home. I have to we're very careful and conscious about where our food goes, and so we use mostly glass. Everything's in mason jars. Yeah, but vacuum seal, what they make. What's that?
Detox and drink a bottle of water. Yeah.
Yeah, or my green juice or whatever it is. Yeah.
Plastic bottle. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what those vacuum seal, if they are BPA free or anything like that. I don't know. I'll have to do some research on that.
Okay.
But that's a good way to go.
We're moving on an hour and a half, and we try to keep it to that. So a couple more items. Update from the past. You remember last week I talked about the STEM, the system from 6 Sense, and what they're doing in the Kickstarter. Well, I'll have it in the show notes, but it appears Amir got on and said, hey, if you backed us, you're not going to get a refund. And I think that really didn't sit well with a lot of people. Yes, we know that Kickstarter is just, kind of an iffy type thing. If you back them, you're literally can kiss your money goodbye. That's the way that you have to approach it. But to really come out and say that they won't provide refunds for a product, I think doesn't sit well, and it didn't sit well with a lot of the backers. So they've really I don't think they're going to be able to go on Kickstarter again, especially with their 1.5-year lag on actually creating a product. Yes, it's innovative, it's unique, but I think they had some engineering challenges that they should have been upfront with. They weren't. A lot of people feel that they've obfuscated, and now identifying, hey, you're in this for the long haul. I think that disappointed. As said, this is not a cheap product. It was $300 investment by a lot of people, including myself. And I don't think that's well. They used the interview that we had to kind of said things would be available, and then promised me a developer version and never came through with it. So, yeah, not a good thing. Okay, on that, I want to end this. Next week is the San Mateo Maker Faire. I think it was one of the first that was created. It starts next Friday, and this may be a little tearjerker for some of you. This girl is real positive. She sadly had her life cut off at 24 in a camping, or actually it was just a hiking thing. Sadly, I don't think anybody should be hiking in the middle of a snowstorm, so I don't know what that was about. But you'll have to see this. This woman was full of energy, a lot of maker creativity, and with the show coming up next week, I think that's a great way to pay tribute to her creative spirit and launch next week. On that note, I am going to be there starting Thursday at MedX Make, and I will be there all weekend. Hopefully Chris will be able to join me. I don't know what his schedule will be like, but I think I will be devoting Friday as well as Saturday to going around and looking at all the booths. If he can't, he'll run the command center, I'm hoping, back in Paso Robles. If not, he'll be by my side, and we'll be interviewing a lot of the makers up there. So on that note, I will go ahead and play the video, and I'll sign off. Bye.
Hello everyone, my name is Zina Lahr. I am from Uray, Colorado, and I circumnavigate the areas of California as well. And this is my room. And I like to make things. I I suppose you could say I have a self-diagnosed condition called CCD. It's creative compulsive disorder, where I have to make stuff all the time and with whatever I have around me. So if it's trash or junk or things that people would normally throw away, I try to find ways to refabricate them into something useful and new. I like taking stuff and doing the unexpected with it. This is an old parasol that it was at an antique store and it was falling apart. I decided that I was going to stick some lights in it because I needed a flashlight. Why have just a flashlight when you can have a lighted parasol with 100 LEDs in it? So I put this in there. I love making robots. One of my favorite things to make is robots. I love learning about kinetics, and I love gathering any kind of information on how things move and applying it to either the realms of animation or robotics or mechanics or even puppetry. I made this tarantula for a TV show. Me and a team of 3 other people constructed these leg systems out of zip ties and pool noodles. It had working mouth parts, mandibles that could raise up and down, and jointed legs that were puppeted by 8 rods. I would say that I am inspired by real-life creatures when I make puppets. The project of moving on was one of my favorite projects. We were doing it for these people in Africa that they had seen hardship and trial. I decided to make a crane out of watercolor paper that I glued together and sewed, and I made a base armature out of wire that I soldered together. I sewed all of its feathers on its arms with just tiny stitches. As I animated the crane moving its arms up, every feather would fall down naturally. And I watched a ton of videos on African gray cranes and how they moved, and I applied that to my stop motion process.
Wow.
I made this sea monster named Catalyst out of Chavant clay and wire. I basically wrapped the wire into an armature and added the clay to it. I was mostly inspired to make Catalyst by looking at creatures that were already existent. Anything from like a praying mantis to some lobsters to even prehistoric animals like trilobites with their back plates on her. I like integrating art into anything that I do, including what I wear. So every day I put on a different outfit, and I like to make myself my own canvas. I wear goggles because you just never know when you're going to need goggles. It's good to have eye safety, and I'm always ready with my eye safety. I don't even remember the first time I started making something, but I just think I've always made things. And it's been my passion and my heart to bring life to something inanimate. I just see every day as a new opportunity to bring art to people. And if I can do that by what I wear, then I'm going to do it in every way possible.
Rest in peace.